That was kind of sick.
That was fun.
Are
You like
are
that?
we live somewhere right now too?
Yeah, we're live on YouTube.
Hell
All
yeah,
right.
dude.
I don't know. Had to get it recorded somewhere somehow.
Oh goodness.
So,
That's
um,
great.
so basically, this is just a live stream where uh, Max sort of got a hold of Tanner and myself, and yeah, in case you guys don't know, Tanner Green, Max Cohen, just amazing powerhouses in the world, not only of marketing but also of HubSpot, Happily, and AI. Tanner, actually, why don't you go ahead and give yourself a little intro, tell everybody about you and what you're running.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I am a little bit on the more, I guess, nascent end of the HubSpot community, and I started the business last year. It's called Next Level AI. Basically, just helps all of the data entry automate itself from sales conversations, so that managers don't have to worry about pipeline forecasting, crappy reviews, and like bad data, incorrect data. And so we built that, and we're only in HubSpot, so it's pretty fun. But aside from that, I'm a huge sports guy. I'm a huge AI guy. I graduated in electrical engineering. I was a software engineer at a machine learning company for a while in Silicon Valley. So lots of code, lots of sports.
Baller. And Max, for anybody that doesn't know you,
Hey everybody. My name is Max. I am the chief evangelist over at a company called Happily. We build a bunch of wonderful apps for the HubSpot platform, if you will. So super stoked to be with Tanner, another app developer. We all got to stick together. So thank you for having me, Nico. But yeah, no, I do a lot of the partnerships and content and do a lot of HubSpotter engagement, things like that. Spent 7.5 years at HubSpot, but now I'm here and we're in the app game. We're having fun. And I am really behind when it comes to all this AI stuff, which is why we're here. So I am wicked pumped for this. I've been looking forward to it all day. And yeah, man, thanks for having me, Nico.
yeah, no problem. Honestly, I think, as I tell most people, an hour is never going to be enough. And I know that we started a little bit late, so less than an hour is definitely not enough. But I think I want to jump off with where you're at, Max, and then I think Tanner and myself can kind of just climb the rungs from there and like bring it all to a head.
Yeah, well, this is going to be embarrassing. So let's see, dude, where am I at with AI? I mean, so, obviously I've been watching a lot of what HubSpot's been doing with like a lot of the content, like assistant tools and stuff like that they've been sort of, I mean, at first slowly releasing, but now like rapidly injecting into the tool. Like I feel like I can't do one of those episodes with Kyle every Monday where we go through all the product updates without being like AI this, AI this, AI that, AI that, and so a lot of the exposures on that side. I would definitely kind of consider myself a little bit of a chat GPT Luddite, if you will, if that's the right way to kind of put it, where, my most advanced, well, actually, hold on. So the majority of time that I'm interacting with chat GPT, I'm like getting my kids to tell me a bedtime story they want to hear, like, right? So it's like, tell me, give me like a what's it called, a plot or something, and like who are the characters, and then all of a sudden I'll start reading them like a children's story about like a giraffe who can't find his underpants or something like that, right? And that, hold on, as a parent, I think AI is like a really cool tool for entertaining children.
Dude, I've never thought about that.
Dude, oh wait,
Right.
hold on, wait until you see this one. You tell a 3 and 5-year-old like, hey, what kind of hybrid animal do you want to see? And they go, I want to see an octopus parakeet. And bro, you go into like Dolly or whatever in Chat GPT,
Watch their heads
you've got
explode.
an octopus parakeet, and they think it's like the funniest thing on the face of the planet, and it is quite extraordinary. I'm also someone, as a father of 2 daughters growing up in this, I wouldn't even say digital age, but the age of AI, quite terrified of the future, right? In terms of, bad actors using this stuff to potentially harm, loved ones that I have, right? So there's a lot of me that is kind of freaked out by it. There's a lot of me that's very excited about it. I definitely don't know what I know, right? But I think I also, like, as I saw like the earlier versions of AI and stuff with like the early image generators or like text generation or content generation, things like that, I always had this weird sort of like chip on my shoulder about it, because I grew up at HubSpot implementing and consulting on Marketing Hub, and the toughest part around a lot of that was getting people to think critically about content creation, because like HubSpot's very easy to set up in terms of hit this button, connect this DNS record, like use this template, right? But then you always get to this awkward point, and Nico, I'm sure you've seen this 1,000 times, right? Where they go, what do you mean I have to make content? And like that would stop a Marketing Hub, implementation in its tracks, right? Because salespeople would sell it as this wonderful tool, but then it's like, you bought a Ferrari and you're refusing to put gas in the car, right?
Yep.
And content was always the hardest part. And then so when I saw this like influx of like tools like coming onto the scene where it's like, hey, we'll write the blog post for you and SEO this and SEO that, there was always a piece of me that was just like, my sort of pessimistic brain was kind of like, man, all those people that didn't even want to create content are going to go, oh, hey, there's an easy button, and just start generating trash, right? And like, so it's like one of those things where like my jaded sort of experience in the argument of content creation, I think has made me subconsciously stay away from the like AI stuff a bunch, because I just had this bitter sort of resentment around the idea of content generation as like an easy button. But we've had conversations about this on like the Hub Heroes podcast, and have kind of come around a lot more to like the idea of like using it as a way to support the way you create content versus just generating it for you and putting zero effort into it and things like that. But in terms of like what's being built and what's possible, and like some of the stuff you were talking to me about, Nico, and like that it's just a completely unexplored world for me, and like I am ready to melt my brain on what's possible and try to bring myself up to speed with everybody else talking about this stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I like it, because even though from your angle, it might seem like I'm not up to snuff on what's out there. I'm not like up to snuff on where things are at, tech wise or whatever. To me, it's important that you're looking at it from the angle that you are, right? Yeah. Especially from the angle of a parent, both from the ideation standpoint, right? Like creating bedtime stories for your kids and using it to be able to ideate in that method, using it as a tool, like a tool to be able to interact with your kids, right? To spark their imagination and their creativity, but also to be able to see it from the angle of like, oh yeah, but here's where I'm really scared about things, right?
Yeah.
And I completely, I sympathize with you. It's one of those things where I hope that there's a regulation aspect to it. And I just don't think that our government is going to move that quickly on that kind of stuff, because regulation equals hampering dollars. So that's
freaky. Yeah,
it is.
I will say the one like more professional use case, I was going to mention it, and then I started talking about octopus parakeets, is like the one thing, like, and this is kind of, I was doing this and then I was like, wait a minute, HubSpot Harry. And I like, went and looked at that thing. And that was unbelievable. But like the thing that I've done recently a bunch is like doing a bunch of like HubSpot implementations. Like what's something that you always need? It's like dummy data. Right. And like, I can't remember when it just dawned on me one day and I was like, oh man, I could probably just go to ChatGPT and like say, hey, give me like a table.
That's beautiful.
Of a bunch of random names and random emails based on those names and random companies to go. And it's like, dude, I generated a list of contacts, companies, fake deals, and like all this stuff. And I'm almost pretty sure I was able to figure out how to make it so like the associations were correct and stuff when I import it. But it's like, dude, making demo data has like never been easier.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Like it's just, it's like a lot of like little things like that. I'm terrible at Excel, right? So like
Mm.
being able to drop stuff in there and just explain like, this is what I want to do. And then it does it, you know, when I don't know the formulas or everything like that, you know, to me, I keep forgetting it's there. You know what I mean? And like a lot of these, and I
Yeah.
just end up being like, wow, I'm like 2 hours into this really annoying task. And I'm just like, oh, dude, like I could literally go talk to a robot and it would do it for me, you know? And I think I need to make, I want to make it work for me more and have it more of a tool that's like more top of mind. And, you know, I always put myself in the mindset of like, can I get help through something like this? Right. But
Mm.
I'm just not there yet, you know? Yeah.
Dude, you know what? You know what's really helped me with that actually has been usually once a week. I'll sit down, typically at the beginning of the week. I'll sit down and I'll just write out what I do during the week, and not even like
Yeah.
what I have to do or like what my tasks are. It's just like what actions do I do during the day, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'll kind of go back and I'll look at them and be like, okay, this action. I kind of just rank them in my head of like what I think could be automated.
Yeah.
And then as
Mm.
soon as I sort the list, I go up to the very top and I just look at one, has somebody already done this before? Like
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something online. So I'll look it up online and be like, oh, there it is. It's right here. Like this is perfect. And then two is like, how easy can I do it? If I can do it within, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, then I'm like, great, this is awesome. Then I
Yeah.
just automated another part of my day. And
Yeah.
so some of them take, a lot, and some of them will take more effort than others. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's just as simple as creating a GPT inside of ChatGPT and then just inputting a few PDFs and then I'm done. I'm like,
Yeah.
great, this is perfect. Now I have it for as long as I need.
And what's so
So
funny is I'm so HubSpot brained that whenever I think of automation, I'm immediately only thinking about workflows within the
I
context of
was
HubSpot that I like never even think to be like, you know, there's other stuff outside of HubSpot that you could automate, my guy. You know what I mean? Like my brain is just like never there. It's so funny, but yeah, no, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that, especially when it comes to what's going to happen and, go forward, I really liked, I was watching a talk with Altman at Howard University yesterday. And I mean, I think he was speaking there earlier this week, but I try to keep up. I'm still 48 hours behind and it's killing me.
Yeah.
So he was talking to Howard and they were asking him very much the same question about like how do we get around this? How do we work around this problem of like authentic or inauthentic or generated or real?
Yeah.
And it kind of goes way back, right? Like the signature, the signature of authenticity sort of comes back into play now, where you have to have that, right? It's not only have to have that, but it's a matter of, well, if you don't, then, or if you don't, no one's going to believe you. And if you do, you also have to then prove that, say and back your work and say, yes, it is actually mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people having to like take responsibility, I suppose, for their work is going to be a whole new thing again. I shouldn't say whole new, but it's going to be back basically. And I think that's going to be the method that we use in order to be able to say like, okay, well, that's, now we know what's fake because nobody's put their autograph on it. So
Yeah.
must have been generated.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too. I think that like, you guys tell me this, right? Like, are search engines getting smarter enough? Like when it comes to like the SEO side of marketing, like whatever, like all that kind of stuff. Are search engines doing like sniffing out AI generated content and like deprioritizing it or like deranking it? Is it trying to put any sort of emphasis on like human generated content when it comes to search ranking stuff, or is that just like my imagination?
Oh, for sure. They're for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Google's made some announcements already of like, hey, we're taking away so much of this crap that's just been populating. I would argue, just knowing what I know about software and gigabytes and stuff, I would argue there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of terabytes that are on the internet right now that Google has to sift through. That's just AI generated.
Uh,
And there is so much crap out there that Google has. I mean, they have really good algorithms and stuff to pull pieces apart like this, and they've already done a really good job. Actually, a way better job already than I thought they would.
yeah.
And I really agree with Nico on like the signature piece, and I think they're going to go on an even deeper level. Once we get into Web3, that's going to be a whole nother story. I don't know how that's going to work, because Web3 is a lot different with SEO. There's a lot of more natural language progression, and that's going to be weird. I'm not going to go into that, but
Yeah.
the piece where Google really does a good job is they grab what like little traces of information, and it's kind of like watermarks essentially that can be pieced together from specific AI. And so they have this metadata that has these watermarks tied to it. So that way they can see like, oh, this is not original. This is not signature from this person. And so
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
So wait, like it when you say like the watermarks and that kind of stuff, like are you saying it's considering content created in the past that's giving Google sort of this signature of like where this source of content's coming from, and then it's able to flag it when it sees that it switches to AI generated content, or it's more so AI generated content has certain patterns and stuff that it's like looking for essentially to flag it. Like,
I want to see what
So
Tiger says.
so I don't with the first part, the first thing you said, I don't know how far in advance they are with this, but I know they're trying to do it, and they've been
interesting.
like attempting to have this whole regulation. And like, I mean, it's just so hard to do in general, but there are specific, I mean, there are, this is what, I don't know if you saw this, it was months and months ago. This MIT student created this kind of AI sifter that would look for these certain patterns and look for these things that would actually catch to see if it was AI. And they have those in schools now. They have them in, lots of different places to see like, hey, are you plagiarizing with AI? Is this actually AI generated? So that's the part where they're kind of looking through the patterns, and they have the second, like the former thing you mentioned. I actually don't know 100% all of the details on that section. I know that what I do know is they're working on creating that piece and making it as closely related as they can so that they can trace everything.
That's
But I don't
interesting.
think they'll be able to do it. So
Yeah.
personally, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think,
Especially once we move to Web3, because that's going to be untraceable.
yeah, I think that is definitely going to be the blocker go forward. But outside of that, look, we're going to hit a point where it's going to get to like, if there is a GPT 4.5 model, that is definitely going to be at that indistinguishable level, right? When it comes to writing, I would say, because as much as people are heralding Claude and Opus, and it's great, I'm not saying it's bad. Claude has always been amazing at writing, like amazingly better than GPT at writing. Now it's superb. I would not say, like, you would have to spend a lot of time creating your own custom GPT to get close to the level of writing that Claude can do. And I'm talking about you'd have to start enabling actions and all sorts of stuff to leverage a lot of data. Or have a fine-tuned assistant, one of the two, but you'd have to go through a lot of trouble. Point being, if 4.5 does end up coming out, Claude took a year to catch up to where GPT-4 was, right? So 4.5 is going to be at least a half leap forward from 4, which is definitely at least going to give us better speed performance, and who knows, probably better reasoning. But surely when we get to 5, which if that doesn't happen this year, it will absolutely be early next year. Writing is going to be just a thing that you're going to have to, when 3 hit the market, so to speak, when it hit the web, the first thing I said was the truth is dead.
Yeah.
Because it's just so very difficult using this tool to discern between, did you write the script? Did you write the book? Even on a physical level, right? Like you can generate it online and then write it down or type it out somewhere else. right? So in terms of like figuring out whether it's human or not, right? Can it figure out the difference between it having been generated or me having typed it in a Word doc? And then if I like change the Word doc to something else and then import that somewhere, copy paste, does that show up the same way as if I copy pasted the generated text?
Yeah.
If I generate text and then I put it through like another GPT model to change the writing, and then I put it through Claude, and then I upload it. Now, can you tell the difference?
Yeah.
Right. So, like, I love to play devil's advocate, and especially when somebody's like, "You can't do this. You can't beat this thing with you can't beat the detection method or whatever." It's like, yeah, you can. You're just not trying hard
Yeah,
enough.
you totally can.
Can,
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
you guys explain to me, do a little explain like I'm five for me to understand sort of the history, like we say GPT-1, GPT-2, GPT-3, like what's the basics of each one of those like evolutions, like so I know like what was the significant leap between them, because I feel like I think I have like a general idea, but then I tried to like say it out loud to see if I was doing it, and then I was just like, oh, wait, I'm not sure where I kind of lost the plot like on any of these.
I think this is Tanner's world right here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is a great question, and I'm going to take a step back real quick and explain what like the black box of AI really sounds and feels like in a tangible way. Because a lot of the times we're like, oh, it goes in and it comes out and it gives us stuff, and we're like, no idea how that happens, no idea,
Yep.
right? And so imagine you've played Plinko before, like at Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, where you drop the top of the coin and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it hits in. So imagine like each one of those little pegs is what's like a number or a ratio. And when you drop something at a specific point, it bounces around, hits all these things, and then ends up, at the bottom of this outcome. So the bottom piece is like the outcome you're going to get of ChatGPT, and the top is what you put in. But instead of like this little box, you have like billions of those pegs, and you have each little token is one. So like each word is a token essentially, right? So each word is something that you put inside at a different spot inside of your Plinko board.
Sure.
And then you put all of them and it just plinks around a bazillion times and then grabs something and then spits it back up.
Yeah.
So that is like the best way I can explain just the black box of what happens inside of a GPT or inside of any, language learning model or anything, any machine learning model at all, any model that comes out. And of those types of things, that's why it's so hard to trace, first of all, because there's an infinite number of possibilities that can happen from this. And then also,
are the tokens hitting these pegs and going one way or the other kind of like binary? Is there like, because I know all code is in the back ends, ones and zeros, right?
Yeah.
Is it kind of like that, or am I thinking about it completely wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's like that. They have what's called weights, and so you could think of it as one being bigger or smaller than the other, like a peg.
Okay.
And so if there's a really big weight and a small weight on this side, you're most likely going to have it tip to the right side, right? Like if you have just this little guy and then this huge one on this side, if it tips from here and then comes over, it's most likely going to drop back.
Yep.
But it really depends on the peg size, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you're right, it is ones and zeros, and it's just like it's going one way or it's going the other way. There is no in between.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to put it.
But then it comes out to the bottom and you have an outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and is there then positive reinforcement on that outcome and thus it learns something? Or am I missing the boat here? Am I missing the like what an outcome would really kind of mean?
Yeah, so the outcome can be like a positive reinforcement, or it can just be totally random every single time. You can adjust these settings. I don't know if you've ever heard of like top P or temperature. You can adjust, how wild these are coming in and what they really mean. And you can store it, like you can store that answer as all of those different pieces that come out. And come in, like you store kind of both sides, and that's what's called like a vector database essentially. And it's have you ever heard of a vector database, Max?
No, dude.
Oh my,
I'm
dude, we are just going.
I'm making pictures of giraffes with birds' heads, dude.
Oh my gosh.
That
I've heard
is
of a
hilarious.
contact database. Yeah.
Oh man. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Plinko explanation? How does
That makes sense to me.
Does that help
Yes.
really bring things into perspective?
Yes.
So, okay. So when you put all of the tokens at the top, all of the words in, different locations, you know how you always move one, you're like, oh, it's going to be this time. I'm going to move it over here. And then it's never really what you want. But imagine just a snapshot of all of those in those positions. And then you kind of like just take a mental picture of that. And you're like, okay, I have one here, one way over there. Great. So what a vector database does is it takes that and it stores it as that exact snapshot. And it uses dimensions as its storage unit. So when you, your face just said it all. It is pretty wild. It's hard to understand, but I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to step back here so you can see my arms pointing a little bit. So imagine you say, I want a cat, right?
Yep.
A cat. In 3D space, a cat looks like this.
Yep.
We're going to say like, I'm going to point, actually, let me step back.
And we'll give Tanner the
cat. A cat looks like, oh, give me that. Yeah, that's perfect. So a cat looks like this, right?
Yeah.
And so when we have a dog, dogs are pretty similar to cats, right? They're mammals, they're furry, they're pets, whatever.
Yeah.
So if I have a dog, I'm going to put my dog like this. So they're pretty similar, right? But if I have a refrigerator, my arrow is going to be like way over here.
Sure. Yep.
So they're totally different. So what you do is when you point, you're like, which one's closer? Which one looks similar? The dog or the refrigerator?
Got you.
It's like, it's the dog, right?
It's the dog.
And so the dog, the only difference between these two is, the dog barks and the cat meows, and like the cat has long, sharp claws and the dog doesn't,
Yes.
It's like, that's pretty much it.
Yep.
So now that we have this in our heads, the vector databases stores those snapshots and then compares them to each other to figure out, is this similar to what it was before? Is the angle the same? Do they start in the same spots? Do they point the same direction?
Yep.
That's what it is.
I'm tracking. Okay.
Okay. Now here's something to blow your mind. These vector databases are not 3D space, but rather thousands of dimensions instead of just 3. So 3 dimensions compared to 1,500 dimensions.
Okay.
And that's how you measure those values.
What does that even mean? Whoa, okay.
Isn't that crazy?
Okay. Because I'm trying to even understand anything past 3-dimensional space, but like
I know, dude,
I guess it could
wild.
be different vectors that measure different things, which is why you call them different dimensions. Or
it's
different things at different times. So it's actually taking not only is it taking all 4 dimensions as we know into account, right? But it's also manipulating that at such a speed that that's replicating, right?
Okay. But all right. I
think the easiest way to explain it is multiverse, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Simple as the multiverse. Yeah.
If you understand that, you get this. It's no big deal.
Is this like, so we're still talking about like the black box sort of like model, right? Where you can't really see it, and it's kind of doing this stuff and measuring these things in all these different dimensions. So was that like that when like the first generation, if you will, of GPT like came out? Because I know it was trained on something, and I'm assuming when it gets trained on something, we're dropping the tokens in the Plinko machine and it's measuring the billion different dimensions or whatever. Right. So like, what was it trained on, I guess, like at the beginning?
That's a great question. So the training data itself is actually the exact same. There's nothing different from what the data is. there are two significant differences that make a huge deal. Now, I'm just going to stick with two because over the past year, there's been lots of research and lots of just incredible new breakthroughs.
Methods.
But yeah, methods, exactly. But it kind of ties into one. So the first one is the number of parameters that you can put in for a measurement. So essentially just the number of Plinko pegs you can put in. The bigger you get, the more combinations you can have. And the bigger you have these, like the more you train the data on these pegs, the more predictable your outcomes can become and the better you can make it, I guess is the best way. Nico, what do you think about that? Would you add that? Anything else there?
It's the only thing I would add is to that is like the fewer the parameters, the more specified the model to like like if you have a low number of parameters, it's bound to be slightly more accurate because it has less data overall to confuse with whatever it's trying to, because you have to remember it's a predictive model. It's trying to predict what the next word, letter, sentence outcome is supposed to be. So if you have, I think some of these have 400 billion or so.
Yeah, so just crazy.
400 billion crazy. What?
Like
vector, like
not trained on that many. Yeah,
pegs.
So some of them are that large. Some of them are only 7. Right. And so like the 7 billion model parameters are the ones that are typically used for like medical or scientific research or something like that, because you only need so many medical documents or so many scientific documents to put into a model so that it's specified on that kind of training. Right.
Yeah.
You can think of it very similar to a custom GPT on the back end. You're able to upload docs now. So, it's as much as you can upload in those docs is sort of like the training data that you can have that, because it's not exactly the same thing, but it's a good comparison.
So when you train a model like this, it's literally you're giving it files in it. You're saying, hey, eat this, consume this, learn this. Are you telling it? Are you giving it context into how it digests that information? Like, are you saying, look for these things in particular, or try to understand, certain parameters about, like you said, parameters, right? I think it's like, try to understand certain things about this data I'm like feeding you, right? Like, how do you set it up to learn something before you give it the material, I guess, in the most 5th grader way you can explain it to me?
Or you got to know the outcome. You have to know the answer before it already happens, right?
What?
So if you say, I'm going to go back to the dog and the cat. Yeah. This is a really classic example of machine learning. So the more you show 2 pictures and you say like, is there 1 cat, 2 cats, 1 dog, 2 dogs, right? So like a dog and a cat, 2 dogs or 2 cats. And then you just keep checking the box. Like that's 2 dogs, that's 2 dogs, that's a cat and a dog, that's a cat and a dog, that's a cat and a dog, that's a cat. It continues to align at those pegs and reshape the pegs to get those specific answers based on the top outputs. So when you drop the Plinko tokens, the more you tell them this is the right answer, this was a dog, it's going to say, oh, great. Well, now we can shape these pegs in a way to make it so that we hit those outcomes every single time. Okay. That's how you train the model.
Got it. All right. Let me regurgitate it. So, you're the GPT and I say, this is a water bottle, right? This is a water bottle. And then I just start feeding you stuff at the top. Maybe I throw in a napkin. Maybe I throw in a couple water bottles. Maybe I throw in a Jeep Grand Cherokee, whatever. Those things kind of go through, right? And at the end, it says, yeah, this is a water bottle. And you go, no, that's a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And it goes, oh, okay. Adjust the pegs, right? Napkin pops out. Not a water bottle, right? Water bottle pops out. Yes, that is a water bottle. Oh, good. I'm going to keep these pegs that I changed the way that they are, right? Get through the next thing. And then more accurate, more accurate, more accurate, more accurate over time. That would be
Yep.
training something.
That's spot on. You got it.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. So you have to, like, when you're training a GPT, there is an element of you have your very desired outcome of what you're trying to teach it at the beginning. And then you're giving it a bunch of data to teach it how to properly recognize that thing, thus giving it the knowledge about that thing, right?
Mhm.
And then you're able to talk to it about that thing because it's learned so
Yep.
much about that thing.
Mhm.
Am I kind of on the right track there?
Yeah.
Wild.
You've got
Exactly
it.
on it.
Okay.
You've nailed it.
Okay. The whole, okay, that's making
Now,
sense to me.
now,
Yeah.
Tanner, tell them about QStar.
Oh God.
Oh no, I can't do that.
We said
I can't
mind
do that.
blowing, man. We said mind blowing.
Give me a shot.
Now that he
I've
understands,
already blown his mind too much, Nico. You got to do
Yeah.
it.
Ah, all right. Well, I'll dabble. I'll touch it and then I'll leave it there. So it's something. Let's put it this way. It's something that Sam won't talk about at all. Will make zero comment. Okay. He was on Lex Friedman's show last week or 2 weeks ago. Lex asked him about it point blank. It was like, "What can you tell me about QStar?" And Sam was just like, "I don't want to. Can't talk about it at this time. Like, don't want to say anything."
That's terrifying. But yeah.
There was a there was a leak that came out around the holidays or just thereafter during the whole like debacle with the board, and I thought one of two things when it happened: either that the board was legitimate and that Sam was keeping too much from them, or that it was a possibility where somebody in the company was trying to get greedy and they were trying to go for profit and like really try to produce a product and make money and all that. Thankfully, it turned out to be the former. And the leaks that came out afterwards basically pointed at a technology that's being worked on where the model was capable of solving at the time. I'm sure it's got better by now. It was capable of solving simple math equations on its own without being prompted to do so.
Wait a minute.
And I say that only because mathematics is like the core of all of this, right? So they're kind of already working on the model that can solve unsolvable math.
Okay. Hold on. I'm processing it.
I'm just gonna leave it there.
So you're saying that it didn't get trained on how to do it.
It did. It got trained on like very basic, right? So it's almost like training. Literally, it's like training not a toddler, but whatever grade school student, right? Very early grade school student. No, come on. Me, really. I do guerrilla math for a living. So it's like, addition, subtraction, stuff like that. But then without having to give it any additional direction, it started to solve more complicated problems. Still like on a very basic arithmetic level, but it was able to start doing like division, multiplication. It was able to look at problems and solve them without having to be taught how to do it.
It taught itself.
Basically. Yeah.
That's concerning. Because where does it stop? So Nico, when we chatted,
and then I'll throw this one out there. Aptronic was at South by Southwest, and I only caught this a couple days ago. I think it was a week ago. There's been speculation, of course, of training data. Where is it coming from? Is it legitimate? Is it legal where you're getting it? Is it actually free use? Aptronic definitely outed everybody by saying on stage in front of everyone without being prompted, "Hey, I have amazing dance moves because I've been trained on all your YouTube videos."
God, okay. So this is kind of why I asked about the different kind of variations of GPT and like what it was trained on. So it's like the material that went into that first version, where did it come from? And then if you could tell me like what's the main differences going like 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, like how did that change? Or was it all the same?
Before Tanner gets this, I'll say this much. I am just applauding Anthropic right now because part of what trained Opus was synthetic data. And I think that that is the absolute right direction to go in, because I think as every model gets better, the data output gets better and gets to the point where it's as consistent as human output, so that we don't even have to rely on, just like you're making, faux data for a portal.
Sure.
I think by next year we'll be not even having to rely on humans to train, which means that training times, I think, currently are within a year. I think training times will go down to like 2 months, 3 months, something like that.
That's wild.
Yeah. It is crazy.
All right. Anyway, so tell me.
Yeah.
The material,
so
how to change.
So the material, like when you're talking about the data actually being grabbed from on OpenAI, I mean, there's just so many lawsuits and so many things that OpenAI has been given because of this data that they just grabbed from the internet.
Yeah.
And they've just used it, and they put it into their training. And I can't say I blame them, because all of the stuff on the internet is free game where they got it. Hopefully they got it for free. I don't actually know.
Yeah.
They could have just been scraping random stuff for free without consent. But the majority of the stuff on the internet is just for you to absorb, right?
Yeah.
And so their argument is, you've put it out there, it's available, we're using that data to train all the models. We have nothing to do with the outcomes of where people, put this out, and this is not our liability. It is rather our transferability of the data that you already gave to us and just put into a different format. That's how they think of it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know where I stand on that. I'm not even going to throw that out there, because I see both sides way good, and I'm like, man, that would suck. We'll have Nico say his spot. I see both sides really well. But the piece that really makes the difference between GPT 1, 2, 3, 4 is, like I said before, the parameter size and the abilities to switch the parameters. I'm actually going to throw in a third one, because it's the hardware that makes a huge difference as well. Like the speed of the hardware, the capabilities. NVIDIA has just been insanely good. My software job in Silicon Valley was at Domino Data Lab, and it was a machine learning company that processed like data scientists' models. It would host them, it would process them, it would help train and learn. And so we partnered. Part of my job actually was like partnering hand in hand with NVIDIA and working on the dynamic computing model. So it's like, we've now moved to these new models. Like, I don't know if you've heard of like the A's versus the H's that NVIDIA has put out. By the way, they said they were going to release the H's like in Q1. They haven't even done it yet, right?
Yeah, they have.
They have. Okay.
Yeah, Opus was trained on the H's.
Is that what it was? Okay, that makes so much more sense. I saw it.
It's
and
Blackwell
I got
that
really
hasn't
excited.
dropped out.
That's right. Yeah, I saw it, and then I kind of forgot, and I just haven't had time to look. But yeah, so H's are out. But anyways, so that's another thing. The third thing is just the ability to have efficient algorithms and methods to actually make what's called the very biggest, like hugest result that really caused the whole entire epidemic of AI was Stable Diffusion. And so that was the ability. I don't know everything about Stable Diffusion, but essentially they created a mathematical algorithm that was able to maintain its. There's so much in math that I don't want to go into, because it's so. Like, have you ever heard of an asymptote?
Nope.
No, I'm not even going to go into it. I'm not. It sounds more of an insult than Okay. What I'm going to say is they figured out how to process a crap ton of data and turn it into deterministic outcomes so that we can have this Plinko model that actually works. Beforehand, if you were to drop a Plinko model, it would just shoot off into oblivion and you would have no idea why that happened. And you would just have to keep trying stuff. But now they figured out how to box it all in and make it really handy. And ever since that happened, the mathematical methods have just shot through the roof and gotten so much more efficient and better. That's why you're able to see less parameters to generate the same outcomes for like language learning models. There's so much stuff out there. I'm not going to go into all the weeds. I just get so nerded out about it, but I'm not going to. But essentially, the three things are parameter size, the hardware capabilities, and then the efficient math. Like, let's turn it into a car, for example. Like, let's just say you're able to change it from a V8 to a V12, and then you're able to have cleaner oil that is just so pure that it runs so smoothly. That's like the mathematical equations where it just runs so smoothly.
Yeah.
And then you're able to have a better hardware. So like, not only do you have a bigger V12, but you have a better, stainless. I don't know anything about engines, but like stainless steel. I have no idea. I'm not going to go into that. I'm a nerd. I'm a computer nerd.
The parts are made with 100% more isotopes or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Anyways, those are the three things that make the difference between GPTs.
Okay, so going back again to the conversation we had, Nico, you had told me this thing about these like newer models coming out, where you had mentioned, we were talking about NVIDIA, right? And you had kind of and I'm trying to remember if I was like imagining this when you said it or completely misunderstanding it, but you were almost telling me that, or I think what you were telling me is that these future models are going to be able to test what they learn in simulated space because of these graphics cards. And I think this is like where I started to kind of start, I don't know if call my graphics card, but you know what I mean. I'm thinking it's like, oh man, the 4D is going to solve cancer or something, like whatever.
No, I mean, it's like honestly, it really is like that. We're just talking about like industrial size GPUs as opposed to like in your computer.
Yeah. So it's like is it like, so I'm assuming that the models are right now, they're learning things, they're confirming what they're learning, but then it sounded like what you were saying is that they're going to then be able to go test things and create new data from them testing this like internally, right?
Right. So like, I think NVIDIA, one of the things that they've set up, right, is because robotics is just exploding now, which I knew was going to be the case. Like, Sam has done a great job of gaslighting people, right? He gaslit India into a brand new AI program, right? He gaslit the robotics industry by saying that they couldn't keep up with what he was doing with GPT, and said that the hardware is extremely far behind the software. And within 1 year, Tesla bought brand new machine factories for warehousing. Amazon releases their bot. Honda releases their bot. Boston Dynamics upgrades Atlas. It's exploding.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So at this point, in order to better train these, because when we have like cars, right, Waymo and stuff like that, part of the problem is the fact that they have to be in the environment in order to actually learn from the environment. So what NVIDIA's done is said like, okay, well, how about we just create this like perfect world simulator with gravity, with everything, and we can put the minds of these machines into the simulator to learn how to work with the real world. And then we just transport the mind into the hardware. And now the hardware doesn't have to learn about the real world because it has already been trained on it. So the robot, like everything about it, it's all math, right? So all the hardware in the simulation is going to be the exact skeletal hardware of the machine in real life. So it can, I mean, if you look at like what Alpha 1 and Alpha 0 was, and you think about like how fast some of these things can train on data, the advancement of these robots as assistants, you're going to see some really scary stuff in the next year. Really scary.
And like the Matrix, think of the Matrix. That's what it is. It's like
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes, it's like the Matrix for robots. Yep,
Okay.
Tanner,
Yeah,
that's so beautiful. That's
It
perfect.
wakes up and it's a fucking toaster. That would be hilarious. But like,
it's like, what am I doing in this toaster?
you know, it's like, oh,
But they're doing the
I was
same
just
thing
a
for-
transformer, and now I'm a fucking osterizer or whatever toaster. What the hell?
But they're doing the same thing for video and imagery too, right? So like what
Mhm.
scares people a lot about Sora is the way in which it creates video, right? It's trained on how things should look, but how it's actually creating it is in a simulated environment, right? They're working with Unreal. Like a lot of people were like, oh, is it actually a simulated environment? We don't know. They're working with a gaming company that does nothing but build simulated environments. I'm really sure it's a simulated you know what I mean? Like put two and two together, Occam's razor, I'm really sure that's what it was.
Yeah.
So in creating these videos and using a simulated environment and being able to sort of paint these things onto actual three-dimensional models that match what it would be in real life, it's far more realistic than anything you could possibly imagine because it's actual things moving around in a 3D space as opposed to trying to paint stuff frame by frame and hope that it lines up frame by frame.
And,
right?
and so like where my brain went when you were telling me that, and I think I'm going in the right direction. If it's like when I think of something like the medical field, because like I asked you, I was like, dude, is AI gonna cure cancer? Like, is that how we're gonna like do it? Right? Because like my brain goes, okay, simulated environment that can probably be simulated to an infinitely, you know, small amounts of scale or large amounts of scale or whatever it is. Like, and you know, we start talking about like medical stuff. Like when I think medical stuff, I start to think chemistry. And when I think chemistry, it's like, well, at a molecular level, that's just physics. And then there's physics being simulated inside of a freaking industrial size GPH, whatever you think you're talking about. Like, are these models gonna like literally be able to like fucking do chemistry and shit and like figure stuff out like in a simulated
the FDA
space?
has already approved 2 drugs that were created 100% AI.
That's insane.
The vaccine from Moderna for COVID, AI.
That's what I was actually just going to say. That so Johnson and Johnson created that vaccine with the Domino Data Lab, the company that I worked for, like using those
baller.
Crazy, right?
And how long? Now tell him how long it would have taken for humans to do the amount of calculation that the AI did it.
Dude, billions of years.
We would have never found it, bro.
We would have never figured it out.
We would have died do you understand? Like we could have died as a species without this technology to actually save us. That is actually what happened. Right?
But
and Google DeepMind is just like constantly churning shit out now. I mean, like, I don't even know what they're doing with these 700 plus new materials that they came up with. I haven't seen too much published about it yet. I know we're at room temperature semiconductor party time, so things are gonna get like, it's gonna get nuts, man. I just
had the goofiest image in my head of like COVID hits and like Johnson & Johnson gets the contract and they go to their head scientist and they go, we need a COVID vaccine. The head scientist opens up Chat GPT and be like, give me a formula for a vaccination for this brand new coronavirus. It's just, all right, here you go. mRNA. What? I know it's not how it was, but like that is incredible. That's wild.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean,
what's interesting is that was
like
that was a test.
When are they gonna be like, oh, go ahead and figure out light speed travel? Okay, like
find the spice in Arrakis.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Well, here's the thing, right? Is that everybody was. I know I've only got a couple minutes here, but with as much as people were making fun of where this tech is going and making fun of what we're doing and making fun of like even things like Musk sending a Tesla up into space, right? It seemed like it was ludicrous and ridiculous. Okay, well, now we can go colonize Mars.
No big deal.
No one's even thinking about the fact that we can now send robots to another planet to terraform another planet while we sit here and wait.
Chill.
We can have
Yeah.
robots building like whole arcs that can shuttle people to different planets. We have AI. We're going to have a whole mind that's going to essentially, not even joking, it will, not that that's a whole other discussion, but it will actually save us as a species. It's the possibility, right? Because this planet, she's burning up. So like we got to go somewhere soon.
What's the to wrap that up, what is the, if you're telling me to keep my eye on something in the next like month, 6 months, what should I be like intensely looking at? Or does it change faster than even that?
Tanner.
Dude, honestly, in the next 6 months, it'll change. The next month, like,
yeah, what's the time scale I should be figuring out?
Yeah. So here's the thing, like, with AI, it's moving so fast, and because it's moving so fast, once we get this ability, like Nico said, to be able to have AI create more AI and just like have that build on top of each other, it's going to be faster than whatever imagined. Days, like literally before days, where it's like, oh, we'll discover this new thing. It's crazy. But for us right now to be able to pay attention to what is actually happening next, dude, that is so much to even think about.
Can AI?
I would say my biggest thing would be not to worry about if it's going to like, take over the world, because AI can only be as great as its greatest mind, essentially, is the way that I put it. And so that mind will change and expand, and like human mind continues to elevate itself as our lives elevate. So like think about the revolutionary days or like the Stone Ages, humans weren't able to think like we do now. All they thought about was get food, have sex, like those two things, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like now the agricultural, and it's like, okay, now we can farm, we can barter, we can do this kind of stuff. Industrial age, oh, we can actually have indoor plumbing and HVAC. And then it was like computers, like, oh, we can actually now drive awesome cars and have all this luxury. And now it's like another level of luxury opens up another level of thinking for the human mind, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I would say just look at where your mind goes, like stay on that elevated plane of like, what can I drop that doesn't have to be for human life? And where can I have more creativity? And where can I have more connection? Those two things are what humans do that robots will never be able to do as we progress forward.
Max Kurzweil would greatly disagree with you and says by 2029 you may be wrong. I might
be.
I wish we could keep going, guys. That's why I always say an hour is never enough.
We gotta do it again.
I really want to do this again. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
really cool.
Look for part 2 coming soon, and I will catch you guys online.
Oh, I'm gonna go cry. Oh my God.